Before diving into Kali Linux, let me explain to you what are the 4 different phases of penetration testing. When you do a penetration testing, you have to go through 4 different phases, and each phases depend on the previous phase. So any penetration testing consists of first phase is the reconnaissance phase. Reconnaissance phase is the phase where you start collecting or gathering information about your victim, and those should be passive information. We're going to explain exactly what is passive information. Once I finish collecting those passive information, we're going to start the scanning phase. And scanning is also collecting and gathering information, except in this phase will be active information. And one more time, later on, we're going to explain what is the difference between passive and active. But during the first 2 phases, we're going to spend time and effort, and we're going to utilize all Kali Linux tools to gather information about our victim. Depending on those information, we're going to start the exploitation process. So I know that the victim has a specific operating system, and this operating system has a specific weakness. So let me try to exploit the system, hack the system through this weakness. I know that the victim is using a specific version of Acrobat Reader, for instance, and this Acrobat Reader, it's vulnerable and can be hacked. So I'm going to hack his own system through this victim. This is called exploitation. And once I get access to the system, once I compromise the system, the final phase will be the post-exploitation. So if I compromise the system through a weakness inside the browser, if the victim closes the browser, he will cut me off, and that's it. But I need to maintain my access. I need to do whatever it takes to become permanently on this system. So I need to migrate one of my process to a system process. So victim will not be able to disconnect me from the session. How can we do that? We're going to explain during Kali Linux those 4 different phases in depth using Kali Linux tool. So please consider that penetration testing, it's not a random process where you should start this tool and that tool. No, it's a very organized process. And when you write your report, as you're going to see by the end of this course, you need to mention what was the output of each phases during the reconnaissance, what was your output, what was your finding, and what is your recommendation during the scanning. What was the result of the scanning? What port and service are open? What operating system, network topology, and what do you recommend? And how hacker can utilize that? Exploitation, how you were able to exploit the system, using which vulnerability. And usually we do not just use one vulnerability. We check for many vulnerability and try all of them. So it's not like I was able to find a vulnerability or a weakness in the system and I compromise it. But this will be a proof of concept. But for me, I need to know all the vulnerability on the system, or most of them, and try to exploit most of them. Because if one is not working, maybe the second will be working, maybe the third will be working. So I need to have different plan. And finally, how I was able to maintain my access on the system. So those will be our blueprint that we will be using from now on during the penetration testing. And by the end of this course, I'm going to show you some real penetration testing report. I'm going to remove the name of the company and maybe the name of URL or anything that should not be showing. But I will show you how, using those different phases, you can write a professional penetration testing report.